Right now, while you are sitting here watching this, millions of people are pressing a button on their microwave. They are reheating something from last night, and they have absolutely no idea that what happens inside that food the second time heat touches it has been directly linked by cancer researchers to one of the deadliest diagnoses a human being can receive: pancreatic cancer. 12%. That is the 5-year survival rate. 12%. By the time your pancreas signals that something is wrong, by the time you feel that dull ache in your back, notice your skin going yellow, lose weight without trying, the disease has typically been building inside you for a decade. There are no second chances with this one. And here is what nobody tells you. 4 specific foods sitting in your refrigerator right now undergo a chemical transformation the second time you heat them that produces documented carcinogens. Compounds that researchers have classified as probable human carcinogens. Compounds that your pancreas absorbs directly. I'm going to show you all 4 today, but I need you to stay with me until the end, because the one that will shock you most, the one that most people would never suspect in 1,000 years, that one is number 1. I am Dr. Joe, board-certified oncologist, 25 years of practice. I spent over 2 decades operating on cancer patients at some of the top centers in the country, including Memorial Sloan Kettering. And I want to tell you something I tell every senior who sits across from me in my office. Prevention is not optional. It is the only strategy that works consistently with pancreatic cancer. Because once it arrives, I have almost nothing left to offer. Now I want to ask you something before I continue with the 4 foods. Have you ever had a doctor explain this to you? The chemistry of what happens when these 4 foods are reheated? Type yes or no in the comments right now, because I have asked this question to audiences of thousands of seniors, and the answer is almost always the same. Nobody told them, ever. Here is what I need you to understand first. Before I name a single food, I need to give you the chemistry, because without this foundation, the rest of this video will just sound like fear-mongering, and I refuse to do that to you. You deserve to understand exactly what is happening, and more importantly, why. When certain foods are cooked the first time, natural chemical reactions occur. Proteins interact with sugars and heat. Nitrogen-containing compounds interact with amino acids. Fats begin to oxidize. In most cases, the compounds produced by first-time cooking are present in amounts the body can manage. Your liver handles them. Your kidneys process them. You move on. But the second time heat is applied, the equation changes completely. Here is what happens simultaneously. First, whatever protective antioxidant compounds were present in the original food are further destroyed. The buffers that would have partially neutralized harmful compounds the first time, they are gone now. Second, the chemical reactions that produced small amounts of carcinogenic compounds during first cooking are accelerated again, but without those buffers. Third, bacterial activity that occurred during storage has already begun converting certain compounds, particularly nitrates in vegetables, into more reactive intermediate forms. Heat then drives those intermediates directly into carcinogens. The specific class of compounds I am most concerned about are nitroso compounds, also called nitrosamines. The International Agency for Research on Cancer classifies these as probable human carcinogens. And here is the part that keeps me up at night. Animal research has shown strong evidence of nitrosamine carcinogenicity targeting, specifically the pancreas. Now, before I show you food number 4, I want to tell you about a woman who represents a pattern I have seen dozens of times in my practice. Sandra is 67, a retired postal worker from Virginia. She came to me for a routine cancer risk screening because her brother had been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer 2 years earlier. She was doing everything she believed was right. She exercised 3 times a week. She ate vegetables. She took her vitamins. She was proud of her kitchen habits. Sandra looked at me across my desk and said, "Doctor, I have been cooking carefully my whole life. I do not smoke. I barely drink. Tell me honestly, am I doing enough?" I asked her one question. "Sandra, what do you do with your leftovers?" And her answer told me everything. But before I get to what she said, and what I found when I looked at her kitchen habits more closely, let me show you food number 4. Because this one shocks people every single time. Food number 4, processed meat. Specifically, reheated processed meat. Hot dogs, sausages, bacon, ham, deli cuts, canned meat. Any meat that has been cured, smoked, or preserved using nitrates and nitrites. Here is what most doctors do not have time to explain in a 7-minute appointment. These foods already contain a meaningful concentration of nitrosamines, simply from the way they are manufactured. The nitrites used as preservatives react with the amines naturally present in meat protein during processing. This reaction produces nitrosamines before the food ever reaches your kitchen. Think of it this way. Imagine a chemical reaction has already started in a container. The first time you heat it, you accelerate it slightly. The second time, you pour fuel on a reaction that should never have been encouraged in the first place. Research examining red and processed meat consumption has identified heterocyclic amines, polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, and nitroso compounds as key mutagens, specifically produced when these meats are cooked at high temperatures. A study in the journal Cancer Epidemiology found that high dietary intake of processed meat nitrosamines was associated with elevated pancreatic cancer risk in adults over 60. And I need to be crystal clear about something. If you are taking blood thinners like warfarin, or if you have kidney disease, processed meats and their sodium content create additional compounding risks beyond the carcinogens themselves. Talk to your doctor before making any changes. The practical truth is this: if you eat these foods, eat them once, fresh, prepared once, and never microwaved again. And never, ever fry processed meat at high temperature a second time. Now, back to Sandra. She told me she cooked rice and spinach in large batches on Sundays. All week long, she would reheat portions from the same pot. She thought she was being smart, efficient. She thought she was protecting her health by eating vegetables every day. I asked her how long she stored the cooked spinach before reheating it. 3, sometimes 4 days, she said. I asked what temperature she reheated at. Full power, she said, to make sure it is hot enough to be safe. I sat with that for a moment, because here is what Sandra did not know, and here is what I am about to tell you. The thing you do to make leftover vegetables safe, the high heat, is precisely the mechanism that produces the carcinogens inside them. Let that sink in. Food number 3, spinach and other nitrate-rich leafy greens. Stay with me here, because this one surprises people more than any other. They reach for spinach precisely because it is healthy. And they are right. Fresh spinach is genuinely rich in folate, iron, vitamins, and antioxidants. But here is what nobody is telling you at the grocery store. Spinach contains naturally occurring nitrates. In fresh spinach, these are completely benign. They actually support healthy blood pressure and cardiovascular function. The problem is not the nitrates. The problem is what happens to them after cooking. When spinach is cooked and then allowed to cool, even in the refrigerator, bacterial activity and enzymatic reactions within the cooked vegetable begin converting those nitrates into nitrites. This conversion happens continuously during storage. The longer the cooked spinach sits, the higher the nitrite concentration. Think of it like a slow-moving chemical clock. Every hour in the refrigerator, the clock ticks forward. The nitrites accumulate, and then you reheat it. 2 things happen simultaneously. The heat drives further nitrite formation, and the heat drives a reaction between those nitrites and the amino acids naturally present in the spinach, producing nitrosamines, the same class of compounds I just walked you through with processed meat. A study published in the journal Foods specifically warned against storing boiled spinach for more than 12 hours, precisely because of this direct nitrate to nitrosamine conversion pathway. The World Health Organization's International Agency for Research on Cancer has confirmed that nitrosamines in food are established carcinogens linked to gastrointestinal and pancreatic cancers. Here is the irony. The vegetable you are reheating specifically because it is healthy is chemically becoming something that works against the very protection it was supposed to provide. The same applies to other high nitrate vegetables: celery, beetroot, kale, carrots. Celery in particular contains extremely high nitrate concentrations. Now, I need to be crystal clear about something specific. If you are on blood pressure medication, adding reheated nitrate-rich vegetables to your daily routine creates an unpredictable interaction. The additional nitrosamines place extra burden on metabolic pathways your medication is already working to regulate. Bring this conversation to your doctor. And the fix is genuinely simple. Cook spinach and leafy greens fresh in the quantity you will eat immediately. If you have leftover cooked spinach, eat it cold in a salad the next day. Cold does not drive the nitrosamine reaction. Heat does. That single change is completely free. It costs you nothing but a habit shift. But here is what I need to address right now. Because this is where most people stop listening. They think, well, I do not eat that much spinach, or I only reheat processed meat once in a while. This is not about a single meal. This is about the accumulated chemical exposure your pancreas absorbs over years and decades of repeated weekly habits. Cancer does not develop overnight. It develops through patterns. Your pancreas never warns you while the damage accumulates. And by the time it does, 12% survival. That number again, 12%. Read that one more time. If this information is genuinely new to you, if nobody has ever explained this chemistry before, hit like right now, not for this channel, because when you hit like, the algorithm shows this video to one more senior who might be reheating spinach every single day without knowing what it is doing inside them. That matters more than you know. Food number 2, cooking oils, and specifically reheated oils, or foods that were cooked in oil and are now being reheated. Here is what I need you to understand first, because the mechanism here is different from the previous 2 foods, and it is one of the most documented pathways to cancer in the entire field of food science. When a cooking oil, particularly a polyunsaturated oil like sunflower, corn, soybean, or canola, is heated to cooking temperature, a process called lipid peroxidation begins. The double bonds in the fatty acids react with oxygen and heat. This produces a cascade of oxidized compounds. Aldehydes, including acrolein and 4-hydroxynonenal, polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, acrylamide, when starchy foods are present. These compounds are genotoxic. That means they cause direct damage to DNA at the cellular level. Think of your DNA as a master blueprint stored in every cell of your body. Now imagine someone taking an eraser and randomly rubbing out letters in that blueprint every time you reheat that leftover fried chicken. Not catastrophic damage in one sitting, but accumulated erasures, week after week, year after year. When that oil is reheated, or when food cooked in that oil is reheated, the oxidation process continues from where it left off. Each additional exposure to heat compounds the damage. The smoke point, the temperature at which an oil begins to visibly break down, lowers with each use. The oil reaches its toxic breakdown threshold faster, and at lower temperatures every single time it is reheated. The International Agency for Research on Cancer has classified several primary compounds produced by repeated oil heating, including acrylamide and polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, as probable human carcinogens. And here is the detail that most people completely overlook. When fried food is reheated in a microwave, the surface temperature becomes uneven. Some areas reach scorching temperatures, others barely warm. The scorched areas, even those you cannot see, produce the highest concentrations of all 3 classes of dangerous compounds: HCAs, PAHs, acrylamide. The safer approach is straightforward. Do not reheat fried foods. Eat them once, fresh, immediately after cooking. If you must reheat, use an oven at a moderate temperature that warms the food evenly rather than scorching surface areas. And never reuse frying oil. Discard it after one use. Now, Sandra's situation was coming into focus for me, and I need to tell you what I discovered when I went deeper into her specific habits. Sandra kept a detailed food journal. It was one of those blue spiral notebooks. She kept it by the kitchen counter and logged every meal. When she showed it to me, the pattern was right there. Every single Sunday, she cooked a large pot of rice. Throughout the week, she reheated portions of that same rice, sometimes 3 days after cooking, sometimes 4. She had been doing this every week for 11 years. I am not going to lie to you. When I looked at her journal, my stomach dropped. Because what Sandra did not know is that rice carries a risk mechanism that is entirely different from the previous 3 foods. And in some ways, it is the most insidious of all. Because the danger in reheated rice is not primarily chemical in the way nitrosamines are chemical. The danger is a bacterial toxin, and that toxin survives the microwave. Food number 1, and yes, this is the one I told you would shock you: rice. Here is what happens. When cooked rice is left even briefly at room temperature, a bacterium called Bacillus cereus begins to multiply. Its spores survive the original boiling process and remain dormant in the cooked grain. Once the rice cools down to room temperature, those spores activate. The bacteria begin producing toxins inside the rice. Now, here's the part that most people never hear. There are 2 toxins produced by Bacillus cereus. One causes vomiting within hours. That one is destroyed by heat. But the second toxin, the one produced specifically during the storage phase, is heat stable and heat resistant. When you reheat the rice, you kill the bacteria, but the toxins they have already produced remain in the food. They survive full microwave reheating. They survive stovetop reheating. The bacteria are gone. The toxins remain. Think of it like a factory that has been shut down. The workers are gone, but the toxic waste they produced is still sitting in the building. Turning up the heat on the building does not remove the waste. In the short term, those toxins cause nausea, vomiting, abdominal cramping, and diarrhea. Unpleasant but survivable for most people. But here is what I need you to hear, because this is the connection that most people never make. In the long term, repeated low-level exposure to heat-resistant bacterial toxins from improperly stored and reheated rice contributes to chronic intestinal inflammation. And chronic inflammation of the gastrointestinal tract is one of the most extensively documented pathways to gastrointestinal cancers. The research on this is not preliminary, it is not speculative. The connection between chronic intestinal inflammation and cancer is one of the most replicated findings in cancer epidemiology over the past 30 years. Every time your intestinal lining is irritated by heat-resistant bacterial toxins, the inflammatory response leaves microscopic damage. Over years and decades of weekly exposure, that accumulated damage creates the cellular environment in which cancer can begin. A study published in the International Journal of Food Microbiology documented Bacillus cereus toxin production in cooked rice stored at room temperature for even 2 hours. A 2019 review in the journal Nitrates confirmed the link between chronic low-grade gastrointestinal bacterial toxin exposure and elevated colorectal cancer risk over decades. Now, I need to be crystal clear about something. If you are taking immunosuppressant medications, or if you have inflammatory bowel disease, or a history of gastrointestinal polyps, this risk is not theoretical for you. It is compounding on top of risks that already exist. Talk to your gastroenterologist before assuming your rice storage habits are acceptable. Sandra went quiet when I explained this to her. She looked down at her blue notebook. And then she looked up at me and said, "I thought I was being so careful. I thought cooking in batches was smart." I put my hand on her file and I said, "Sandra, this is not your fault. Nobody told you. The information exists in research journals. It does not make it onto cereal boxes or cooking shows. That is a failure of the system, not a failure of you. The protocol for rice is specific and simple. After cooking, cool rice quickly, within 1 hour, and refrigerate it. The rapid cooling prevents the temperature from staying in the bacterial growth zone long enough for significant toxin production. Refrigerate for no more than 24 hours. When reheating, reheat once only. Ensure it reaches steaming hot temperature throughout, not just warm in the center. And never reheat rice a second time. If you routinely cook rice in large batches to save time, change that habit. Cook rice in smaller quantities so there is less leftover. The time you save by batch cooking is not worth the accumulated cancer risk of decades of weekly bacterial toxin exposure. Now, I want to set your expectations clearly, because I have seen what happens when people try to change kitchen habits without understanding what to expect in the first days and weeks. Week 1. You are going to feel mildly inconvenienced. Cooking smaller portions feels wasteful at first. Eating cooked spinach cold instead of reheated feels like a downgrade. Discarding cooking oil feels expensive. I am not going to pretend otherwise. Week 2. The habit is forming. You are not thinking about it as much. Your rice is fresher. Your greens are eaten the day of cooking or cold the next day. Week 3. This is when most of my patients call me. Not because something went wrong, because they feel genuinely better, less bloating, better digestion, more energy in the mornings. Week 4 and beyond, the habit is locked. And here is what I want you to hold on to. Every week that passes with cleaner kitchen habits is a week of reduced carcinogen loading on your pancreas. That accumulates, just as damage accumulates in the wrong direction. Protection accumulates in the right direction. Most people quit after 3 days because the habit change feels inconvenient. But here is what happens if you quit. Every week that passes with the old habit is another round of chemical insults to the cells your pancreas is trying to protect. The discomfort of changing your habits confirms that your body is adjusting. Push through it. I know this sounds like a lot, but ask yourself something honestly. Is a small inconvenience in the kitchen worth reducing your exposure to the compounds most directly linked to a cancer with a 12% survival rate? 12%. Sandra called me 4 weeks when she called my office. She said, I changed all 4 habits. My digestion has improved dramatically. And for the first time in years, I do not feel like a ticking clock. Sandra's results were on the positive end of what I typically see. Your experience may differ. Some people notice changes faster, some slower. What matters is the direction, and the science points clearly in one direction here. Reducing these 4 chemical exposures meaningfully reduces your cumulative risk. Do not let anyone tell you it is too late. It never is. Now let me bring this together, because I want you leaving this video with absolute clarity, not anxiety. Information you can act on today. 4 foods, 4 distinct mechanisms, 1 unifying truth. Reheated processed meats produce nitrosamines. Nitroso compounds that the International Agency for Research on Cancer classifies as probable human carcinogens with specific links to pancreatic cancer development. If you eat processed meats, eat them once, freshly prepared, and never microwave them. Reheated spinach and nitrate-rich leafy greens convert their naturally occurring nitrates into nitrites and then into nitrosamines through a heat-driven reaction. Completely preventable by eating them cold the following day or cooking them fresh in smaller amounts. Reheated cooking oils and fried foods produce an accumulating load of aldehydes, polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, and acrylamide, genotoxic compounds that damage DNA directly. Each additional heating cycle compounds the previous one. Discard used frying oil and do not reheat fried foods. Improperly stored and reheated rice delivers heat-stable bacterial toxins that survive the microwave and accumulate as chronic intestinal inflammation over years of repeated exposure. Cool rice within 1 hour, refrigerate for no more than 24 hours, and reheat only once to steaming hot temperature throughout. 4 changes to your weekly kitchen habits, not your entire diet, not your life. 4 specific targeted adjustments that meaningfully reduce your exposure to the exact class of compounds that oncologists and cancer researchers connect to the cancers with the lowest survival rates. Now, I need to ask you to do something. Type I finished in the comments right now if you watched this all the way through, and then, before you close this tab, share this video with one person, not the internet, one person. Your daughter, your husband, your neighbor who reheats the same pot of rice every week. Because the information I shared today is not secret. It is published research. But it is not reaching the people who need it most. You can change that with one tap. Today, not tomorrow. Everything I shared today is based on published food science research, biochemistry, and the documented work of international cancer research organizations. This is educational information, not personal medical advice for your specific situation. Every one of the case studies I describe represents a composite pattern I have seen repeated across my practice, consistent with what the research literature documents. Individual results vary. Your health is unique. Before making changes to your diet, supplements, or kitchen habits, please have that conversation with your own physician who knows your history. The connection between dietary carcinogens and cancer risk is well established, but cancer is complex. Your doctor is your partner in navigating it. References are in the description below. Every journal I cited is searchable by name on PubMed. Look them up. Share them with your doctor. A good physician welcomes an informed patient. Now, there is one more thing I need to tell you before you go, and this one genuinely surprised even me when I first encountered the research. Next week, I am going to show you 5 breakfast foods that tens of millions of seniors eat every single morning, specifically because they believe they are healthy. And what the research increasingly shows is happening at the cellular level when those foods hit your digestive system before anything else does. One of those 5 foods is something I would bet money you ate this morning, and I am almost certain nobody has ever explained what it is doing inside you after 60 years of the same habit. That is next week. Make sure you are subscribed so you do not miss it. I am Dr. Joe. I have spent 25 years watching cancer take people who did not have to be taken. I left full-time oncology practice because I realized that one doctor treats hundreds. But one educator can prevent thousands of cancers. That is why I am here. That is why this channel exists. And that is why this information will never be behind a paywall. Do not let anyone tell you it is too late. It never is. I will see you in the next one.